Welcome back, everyone. This is Right Now. We're learning more about the three men killed in Monday's shooting at the Islamic Center of San Diego. We know one, of course, was the security guard. Another had been part of the Islamic Center community since the 80s. All three were fathers. News 8's Shannon Handy has more on the three victims, and we're going to have a conversation with her just shortly here after that story airs.
Regardless if you were a Muslim, okay, if you were Christian, if you were Jewish, if you had no faith, he didn't care. He would treat you human to human. He would smile at people he did not know. You could see the happiness and just who he was as a person, just looking at his face.
The daughter of security guard Amin Abdullah described her father as being both welcoming and a protector, explaining how seriously he took his job.
So seriously to the point, sometimes he didn't even want to eat. He wanted to save his food till after he left the job because he was afraid that if he went on his break, something bad would happen.
Even after getting shot, Amin, a father of 8, was still able to alert people inside the building to go into lockdown mode. Amna's sister was one of the teachers inside.
They got the alert. They started going into, emergency activation protocols to go into disaster mode, to lock down the classrooms, to close the lights, to, put all the kids in a corner, make sure everybody's quiet, and then wait for the next steps from there. And thankfully, thank God, the next steps were police actually came to evacuate them instead of the armed suspects who could have potentially came inside, because in that case, they would have been open. They would have been all open range to getting shot.
All three victims were dedicated family men and longtime members of the Islamic Center. Mansour Kaziha ran the store at the mosque and was known as being the leader's right-hand man. Nadir Awad's wife is a teacher at the school. When he heard shots, he ran from his nearby home. Loved ones say it's hard to imagine going back without them there, but if anything good could come from this tragedy, it's to unite in their honor and continue their legacy.
And I hope this moment we can all come together and to be kind to one another.
My community is mourning. My community is keeping our three heroes in their prayers.
All right, and as you see now here, Shannon Handy. And Shannon, I think again, it's always one of those things where we're very much a introspective show. Like, we are going to talk very clearly about how it is that we gather data, not just our own personal feelings, but how stories can impact us. And again, I think it's real. We've said here on the show, this has been a very heavy week. This has been something that has been impacting our community. We are both parents. We have been taken aback by those images. You were there on the ground. So when you're doing the story and you're connecting with people who knew these victims, I have to ask, A, how are you doing? And then what is that like to relay, these are people's now memories of these people, their dedications to these people. How do you handle that?
It's hard, and I hope I don't get choked up because I did a few times this week. Monday, it's kind of that adrenaline. You hear there's a shooting. Yeah. You just run out to the scene. Our station is just blocks from the mosque. So we were there pretty shortly after. And, we parked the car on Balboa. We're running down Balboa, and past me are these parents that are screaming, "My child's inside, my child's inside." And they're trying to fight with the police officers that are trying to block them. And see, I'm getting choked up because the only thing they knew at that point, and the only thing even the media knew, was that there was an active shooting at a mosque. Yep. We didn't know the number of victims, the extent of anything. We did not know that the suspects had already fled and had taken their own lives, allegedly. We did not know. So imagine being a parent and getting an alert saying there is a shooting at your child's school, and you rush there and you cannot get close to the scene because it's a crime scene. So seeing that fear in real life, in real time, it's jarring to anyone who has a heart, but also as a parent, it was really tough for me to see, but it's my job to get the information out to the public. But I always say, Chris, and I think you would 100% agree with me, a good journalist is someone that doesn't lose their humanity. Yeah. And people ask me all the time, how do you cover all this bad stuff? Are you desensitized? Some of it you have to act like you're desensitized, but I'm not desensitized, and I hope I never am, because as a good journalist, you need to get in touch with real human feelings, real human emotions, and that's how you connect with these people who are sharing their stories.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it's in that immediate trauma that it's obviously you've got to put your game face, or however it is that you want to call it, and you have to be there for the moment. And it's afterwards that I think, we really take great pride in our work, being able to actually go ahead and memorialize these people whose lives, that no matter how old it is they are, how young they were, that they were taken too soon. Mm-hmm. We can all agree on that we don't need objectivity with that. These are people who were killed in a senseless attack on a religious institution here. But more importantly, you know, Amna, the woman that you spoke to, she's talking about her sister, but she's referring, and we've heard this as well too, these three victims being referred to as brothers. And yeah, maybe they're not familiar brothers, but they are brothers in the sense of a community. And we heard the imam talk about that as well too. Yeah. This was a very tight-knit community.
Very. They call each other brothers. Yeah. And what was so jarring about yesterday, and especially the day before, is yesterday learning more not only about the victims, but also the circumstances surrounding what happened and what could have happened. What's interesting about this particular story, and you asked earlier, how do we get these stories? How do we put them together? Oftentimes with tragedy, family members and friends don't really want to talk about it, understandably so. In this situation, what I have found is that a lot of people do want to talk about it, because not only do they want to make sure that these three men are remembered and hailed as heroes, but they want to get their messaging out that hate has no place here. And so they're not only sad, they're angry, as they should be. But Amna, who you saw in that story, her sister was one of the teachers that was barricaded inside. And I couldn't get to all of this in the coverage with time, but her sister texted their mom and basically said goodbye, because they're trapped in the classroom with all these kids, and they could hear the commotion, they could hear the shooting. And I think what kept me up last night, it was really upsetting for me yesterday, is just thinking about what could have happened if that security guard hadn't radioed inside, go into lockdown mode. He was shot at that point, but he knew, I have to radio them because they have practiced for this, unfortunately. And so they all knew to lock their classrooms, get the kids out of the hallways. If he had not done that, because what Amna was telling me, according to her sister, is that they heard noises, but they didn't know what it was. Yeah. So they didn't immediately hear gunshots and then self-barricade. There was confusion, like, what is that noise? Yeah. If he had radioed and said, shooter, go into lockdown mode, I don't even want to think about what the circumstances would have been, because there were 140 children in that building.
About 15 feet away, I think is what Police Chief Scott Wall said. 15 feet away from where the gunmen were. Of course, that security guard, Amin Abdullah, Mansoor Kasia, and Nadir Awad, the other two victims, also being credited with just doing whatever it is that they could to help draw attention away.
Right. Well, what was interesting about that, so one of those victims, he is the mom's right-hand man. He's been there forever. He runs the store. So he had heard the commotion, went outside. The other gentleman who was killed, his wife is a teacher and was at the school as well. He lives just a few doors down, heard the gunfire and ran from his house, knowing there's gunfire at the mosque. My wife is in there. So the two gunmen had made it inside after they killed the security guard. And when they were inside, going from room to room, mind you, they look outside and see these two men in the parking lot, and it distracted them. So it brought them back outside where they were unfortunately killed. And that's why all three of these men are being hailed as heroes.
And it's one of those things where it's so tragic, right? Because these are the three victims. And yes, it's very important that we remember their heroic actions, but you can't help but still feel like this is senseless loss, right? That these attacks shouldn't have happened in the first place, and there's going to be a lot of questions about why it is that something like this has happened, the motives, the motivations, and going into all of that. And of course, you can't help but feel like if these three men hadn't taken the actions they had that day, how much worse it could have been. And I think there are still a lot of questions, Shannon, that a lot of people had. But you mentioned the anger. As well as I would say the passion, the push, the fight, whatever it is that we're going to be seeing from the members of the Islamic, the San Diego Islamic Community Center, and everything, the Islamic Center, I should say again, everything that they are going to be pushing for here. Was there anything in your conversations or anything that you heard from yesterday? We heard beautifully from Amin Abdullah's daughter there. Again, father of 8 children.
Yeah.
Anything that you heard that they are pushing for, that they want? We're going to be speaking with the head of CARE San Diego some point this week, likely. But I have to imagine that there are things that they feel like need to be done now to continue to protect them.
Absolutely. And there were discussions that were somewhat politicizing the issue. Not everyone shares these feelings, but there was some blame put on lawmakers and allowing hateful rhetoric to just exist in our country. And I don't know what you can do to stop it entirely. They didn't offer any specific solutions, but I think the overall message here is that we should not normalize these types of incidents.
Yeah.
We have so many mass shootings in the United States, and unfortunately, some do involve religious institutions. Some are based on your race, your culture, and their argument, those who are angry are saying, why? Why does it have to be like this? Our lawmakers need to step up. They kept saying that. What they can do, I mean, we could talk in circles about this for hours and hours and days, and I don't want to get into that because I'm just here to tell the story and tell both sides. But that was shared during the news conference yesterday where the daughter spoke. So, yeah, there's a lot of emotions, a lot of anger, and I don't think they're going to stop pressing for change, whatever that change is.
Well, Shannon, thank you again. Excellent job of reporting it from all angles, again, from the very moment that this happened to making sure that we properly have the context around those who gave their lives to prevent further pain and sorrow here in that community, in our community.